I believe I've heard in this podcast actually the difference between some of the previous guests talking about the difference of agile with capital A and agile with small a, right? And agile is with small a will be what is in the mind of every executive that has been reading it on business reviews or on or that has been seeing how Facebook or how the big tech corporations are eating the world, no, and have become the mega giants. So what they mean, I believe, with that small a agile is more entrepreneurial. I want us to be able to change faster, to adapt to reality faster, and I don't care how.
Yeah.
Well, they do care, but changing faster trumps everything else, right? It's a bit of the essence of agility. When I look it from my lenses, I will say that agility with capital A is the capability to learn fast and to act on those learnings faster.
Today's guest has an incredible career under his belt. He has worked in startups and large corporations. He is a business agility and product discovery coach. Please welcome to the show, Nast Marrero. Good morning, Nast. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Very good, Jens. Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you. Such a pity that we have been living in the same country, but we haven't met each other.
Yes.
And now I'm back in Germany.
Yes. You were with the fancy people on the capital, and I was with the real deal down in Juland.
Yes. Cool. Before we go into innovation, your point of view of innovation, how you're coaching, how you work with business agility and a lot of other interesting topics, tell us a little bit about who are you? What is your story?
Of course. The question, who am I will start saying that I like to say that I was a circus monkey turned into an agile coach. But that's mostly when I'm in a big stage, just to make people relate. No, I come from an arts background, and I started my career as a poet and as a theater practitioner. And afterwards, I decided to switch my journey. I wanted to change what I did in life, and then I started my own company doing soft skills training through my theater background. Then started working with entrepreneurs, with venture capital, with lean startup, agile coaching, and lately more within the realm of agility, product development, and innovation. That's the main journey. It's been a broad zigzag, but it's starting to make sense.
So, if you look at it from a historical perspective, what is the red thread that goes through your story?
Thanks a ton. That's exactly what I was missing to say in the story, in the telltale. I will say that I started my career with the idea. I started my poetry and my theater with the wish to inspire people and help them wake up to live a more humane and fulfilling life. Very much in this dead poet society, the dead poet, the dead poet circle spirit of carpe diem, of if we live in the moment, if we live intense enough, then we'll not be walking zombies, and we'll live a much fairer and a much fulfilling and just in a much just world. No, so that was the burning coal in my early days, and I think that's what has remained even today when I stepped into my coaching practices and in my innovation work. My wish or my Northern Star is to try to help people to be more present and be in a strong connection with who they are and with the context in which they're operating.
Yeah. If you go back to the time where you have been in theater performing topics, and then you decided to go into business, what was the story? What was the one thing or the moment that you decided, no, I want to do something completely different? What's the story behind that?
Well, the story was that I realized that it made me deeply unhappy to perform. It basically played on my insecurities. You might have heard sometimes that some performers, some actors deal with deep stage fright. That was my case. So I had chosen a career. I was touring around Europe, and I had a very, very enriching experience because we were doing what's called anthropological theater. So we were doing interviews, for example, with survivors of the Holocaust, and building afterwards a piece of art, trying to pay tribute to them. So it really gave me a lot of unique experiences and exposed me to unique interactions. But then when I stepped in the stage, my demons of you're not good enough, you're just faking it, this is not where you should go, it really was making me deeply unhappy. And I think that in that realization, I said I can do anything, and I'll be happier as a carpenter, as a whatever. And then the next years were those that time of reinventing myself, working as a waitress in a big change hotel, working in room service, trying to figure out, and then realizing I'm throwing my life through the toilet 8 hours a day. I feel super unfulfilled, and I'm not saying that you cannot be completely happy and as a waiter. I'm just saying that in my own experience, it was very unfulfilling. So then I started on the evenings to build my own business with my best friend, and started to we started creating our own thing and invest in the evenings, trying to make something our own. And later on, that was what hooked us up with the entrepreneurial world. No, that was a great learning playground.
Yeah. Then, in one step of your career, you have been associate professor of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
How did you end up in that position? How did that happen?
That was great. I felt actually very very seen and very fortunate to get to that position. No, because the journey was basically, we started our own company. Then at that time, we got the support of the university, of the foundation of the University of Las Palmas, where I'm from. And we had an entrepreneurship program that we were part of, as our little company was part of that entrepreneurship program. when we got out, the organizers of that program started hiring us to help the newbies and to help them figure out how to give their first steps. A bit later, I joined a seed capital company that was looking into technologies in the university and the technological transfer office. That thing in most universities have one of those. So we were looking into different technological transfer office and investing seed capital. So that was a very interesting learning playground. That I got the big lack of getting that position. Afterwards, I jumped on the other side. I jumped to an accelerator, Tetuan Valley, which was one of the first English-speaking accelerators definitely in Spain and probably in Europe. And it was a very grunge kind of place. We were in the valley, in the area of Tetuan of Madrid. That's a very rough area, and we were doing our programs with the real entrepreneurs. There were a lot of there were some corporate entrepreneurship initiatives. We were the ones that always wore our orange T-shirts and broken jeans and so on. And then at that time I was taking my MBA while I was working in that startup school. I was taking my MBA, which was actually, in my case, it made a lot of sense because I came with zero experience on the business side. And that business school was the one that afterwards I told them, hey, I've been I am a mentor for many companies in this startup school. I have this experience with seed capital. I've been in a startup bootcamp. I've been I'm related with a lot of different startup organizations. I believe I can join as an entrepreneurship professor, and then they gave me the chance, and it was great. Just 1 year after I finished my MBA, I was teaching there, so that was like yes, from the theater and the room service hallways to. It really felt like a big step.
So how was it? Like, was it in classroom teaching? I guess at that time, or how was it?
It was actually, I took my MBA online. So it was the IE Business School is one of the pioneers in online education for the higher. For the top ranking business schools. So I took it already online, and then my teaching was also online. So it was basically 1 day a week I will be giving classes, and then the rest of the week was forum work with discussions on different cases. And I was there also introducing a lot of Agile and Scrum and trying to make them understand the importance of iteration, small teams, cross-functionality, and so on. So
yeah, I was about to double click on that. So how do you teach entrepreneurship? I'm super interested in that because I've never had a class or anything like from an educational perspective to learn entrepreneurship.
So I think that the case method is actually quite good for getting your bearings, no, on many fields, and entrepreneurship is probably one of them. No, it's a low cost kind of way to engage in learning, in deep learning loops and in broad learning loops without having to spend 3 years invested in a certain company or in a certain vertical that you started exploring, and maybe it was a wrong starting direction. So with case studies, mostly that's what we did, and I think it's whenever possible, I always refer back to the startup bootcamps, no, and the lean startup machines, and this weekend entrepreneurship events. I think they are quite powerful, not for the products. I think that the end products of those sessions are usually relatively they fail to impress me, let's say, mostly. But what doesn't fail to impress me is how people get together, and how people that starts with zero knowledge of entrepreneurship get to motivate themselves and to engage and to team up and to iterate. So I think that this idea that Steve Blank repeats time and time again of get out of the building, test. I think it's the best way, or at least to teach students that should be in their DNA. No?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because then you left that to go more into larger corporations, and my experience, of course, coming from a large organization myself, is that especially that part, which is test and iterate as fast as possible, is not the norm in large corporation. So how do you, because you also go from teaching to coaching, what was the switch for you to get into coaching?
So it was an accident, like everything in my life. So I was just lucky to be there. But from the startup school, actually, that I mentioned before, we got one client that was an online university, not the one not the one in which I taught, but another online university that was growing like crazy. It became a scale up from 100 employees to 1,500 employees in 5 years, and 20,000 students. It was bananas, at least for the Spanish market of higher education. And then it was the time of the craze of lean startup.
Yes.
So they wanted to create their own incubator. And they hired me to create their incubator, but the owner was mental. And when we arrived to create the incubator, he said, "Yeah, I have already people to create the incubator. What I want you is to do lean startup, but in our company. I want our company to do the lean startup thing," which was actually something quite exciting. No? It was what Eric Ries was doing at the time. He was transferring to start to do a lot of lean startup experiments with larger corporations, and that at that time I started myself saving the difference between Eric Ries' experience and mine. But yeah, and I got the opportunity to do a lot of a lot of low-brow experiments in this large corporation, and this owner was bananas about marketing. He was a salesman. Right? Mm-hmm. He started his career knocking on doors, right? Yeah. So in this company, the heart of the company was the call center.
Yeah.
So all and his office as a CEO was besides the marketing and the communication team. So there was a lot about how do we do A/B testing? How do we do it was lowbrow in the sense that it wasn't very sophisticated. We were doing it very much with very archaic technologies and so on. But it was definitely determined to experiment and to get and to act on real data of activation and on real data of behavior, of user behavior. Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's the same with my latest engagement. No, in the company that I'm working currently, we have an obsession about play. No, we're a big toy company, and where there's always kids around, we're always playing, we're always exploring, and that was one of the beauties of joining the company, was stepping in and seeing every week there are kids around, there are kids playing, and there's no way. Well, there's a lot of leeway to talk about innovation and talk about what are we trying to accomplish with this and this toy. But when the kid is in the room, then the lights are on.
It's all about fun.
There's no more faking it, right?
Yeah, I love that. And then that's why this company is famous as well in that topics. So I would like to go a little bit towards your perspective of innovation, but then I would as well, because having an expert around these topics like Agile and Scrum, because it's like fashion words for a lot of people in business, and everyone thinks they know it is. I have no idea about it, or at least I say I have at least not much an idea, but I would like to dive into that later as well. Before we do that, what's your view on innovation? What is innovation for you?
I will say innovation is problem solving, and it's also figuring out ways to solve whatever. No? As a new parent, I think that innovation, there are different types, very different types of innovation. I'm going to go back to the theater world. No? There is the innovation in which you completely try to reinvent the language and reinvent the vessel in which you are communicated. So that could be the radical innovation of sorts. The incremental innovation, I'm used to use this framework, no, of the incremental innovation and radical innovation. But there's something also that is not just incremental, but essential innovation that makes me think of theater no. I don't know if you've seen the Japanese art of no theater.
No.
They spend 30 years training before they step in the stage, and it's a very codified world. And your innovation is not to do more. So, for example, I'm going to invent this completely. No, but let's say this gesture means the mirror that opens. And in my 30 years training to make this gesture and many others, what I can always do less, but never more.
Yeah.
So you innovate in the nuances of your movement, in the hard detail of how is the movement ingrained. So I think that there's also some innovation in that universe of the minute nuances. It's not radical innovation or essential innovation doesn't have always to be that we reinvented the whole game.
Yeah. What is then essential innovation for you?
I just made it up, so I'm. So I think if I were to follow that thread of that train of thought, will be to review whatever you're offering under the lens of how can we make more and deeper meaning out of it, or how can we make more and deeper meaning for the people that is going to use it at the end. And that's something that probably it can be radical, but sometimes it's about how we relate to the user, how we communicate with them, how we establish the nature of our relationship in this communication and in this communication process. No? There are many things that my energy, my electricity provider. No, there can be innovation that it's essential and meaningful just by letting me know how are you sourcing my energy, how are you, and how am I able to interact with you in a way that it's not just paying the bills and bye, right?
Yeah. I would like to dive deeper into that, because before we started recording, you talked about a little bit like the human element in a lot of things and how important that is to you. So what is the human factor in innovation for you? Or is it needed? Is it important? Is it not?
It's absolutely necessary. For me, it's essential, again. I think, and this, I will come back to this point later, probably when we talk about agility and team compositions. But I think that one of the big challenges that we face is that Taylorism and scientific management has been an effort toward, have been a philosophy that advocates for mechanicism. So corporations and companies have been, from business schools and from what is the paradigm that we adopt? It's very much making a huge machine, right? And it's and people, except the brains, you probably, I'm sure you face this words. No, you talk about the people that is the brains and the hands, right?
Yeah.
So and the brains are few and the hands are many, right? In corporations. So that's been the historic, no, of how work has been organized in the 20th century. This, to me, implies stupidification of the organization that it hurts me. It hurts me. It pains me to see that we are shutting down computation systems, right? It's like the whole organization, it's like a cloud computing network. It's a connected network of sentient, intelligent nodes. There's no non-intelligent node. But when we tell some people that they shouldn't think and that they shouldn't talk about this subject or this other subject, then I believe that we're just cutting down and cutting down our brain, like saying don't use that part of the brain. Don't use 60% of your brain. Just that part is that those sentient elements are not relevant. So I think of organizations and of human organizations more like a living organism and as a neural network. So innovation, definitely. Of course, in neural networks, there are cognitive specialists. No, there are areas that are specialized in some kind of cognitive function. But nevertheless, there is a complementary flow of information that this cognitive node will be able to use from another server or from another node. I told you I know all these words from the point of view of a poet, not of a technician. So.
Yeah, but I think there's so much truth in it, and I've been working with inside and working with large corporations, I've seen it over and over again over my plus 20 years of my career, that it's often like this. And funnily enough, back in Germany, there's a saying, there are a couple of jobs where you leave your brain at the door before when you enter. I don't know if that works in Danish or in other languages as well, but it's super fitting into that. And you see that in these organizations, people are treated as well, like they have no brain. And I think, like you said, it's one of the most stupid things you can do, because especially in the time where we are in, like everyone has the knowledge of the world on the fingertips in your phone, wherever and you can educate yourself on whatever you want to do. If you take myself, I've never done a podcast before, and you're now episode number 65. Yes, I'm maybe not the best podcaster, but it's at least decent that I have a couple of listeners. So everyone can learn a couple of things if you want to. And I think that's also then, specifically from a management perspective, it's needed to integrate that, because you will be much better off from a business perspective if you engage your employees, not just treat them like hands, like you said.
So I will also jump there on it has served a purpose. No, this kind of jobs in which you park your brain at the door, it has served the purpose of mechanism. No, you use people when you don't have the technology to put a robot or a machine. Then people is filling the gaps between two different specialized machines, and it has served an economical purpose. No, it has served basically the growth, the economical growth of the 20th century. But I also believe that it has meant a deep wound in human relationships to organizations. In a way, it really has meant the infantilization and the stupidification of the infantilization of the workforce. Mainly, if you tell people to park their brain under the door, then they will do so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I park my brain, and it's your responsibility, and I'm not paid for that. And you can see many people that has learned that it's a bit like a high school student. Sometimes you invite people to be more proactive, and you find that you find yourself in a bit of a high school student kind of dynamic of, am I the teacher here? Do I have to give you homework so you come? But that's the dynamic of that's the dynamic that Taylorism and that organizations of park your brain at the door have created and have exploited. On the other hand, I think that as you say, we're moving towards a new space in human in a new human era, and the challenges we're facing are not going to. We're going to disastrously fail, catastrophically and terribly fail, if we don't rekindle the word human.
Yeah, it's so true. Going into agility. So let's start high level. What is Agile from a professional who knows it? For like super basic description, what is Agile? And then going from there as how you use that in a company, or how you can use it.
Good. I believe I've heard in this podcast actually the difference between some of the previous guests talking about the difference of Agile with capital A and Agile with small a, right? And Agile with small a will be what is in the mind of every executive that has been reading it on business reviews or on or that has been seeing how Facebook or how the big tech corporations are eating the world, no, and have become the mega giants. So what they mean, I believe, with that small a agile is more entrepreneurial. I want us to be able to change faster, to adapt to reality faster, and I don't care how.
Yeah.
But they do care, but changing faster trumps everything else, right? It's a bit of the essence of agility. When I look it from my lenses, I will say that agility with capital A is the capability to learn fast and to act on those learnings faster. To the capability of small teams to learn fast and act on those learnings faster. If we go to the whole in Agile was a manifesto of ways of working written in 2001, no, and it has 4 principles or 4 values and 12 principles, and it's basically we want to prioritize value creation and user interaction and adaptation to change over the mechanism plan-based organizations. And then there's that's basically it. It gives you these 12 principles to understand some of the nuances of how can you approach it, but it's super open. And then underneath that, under that umbrella of Agile with capital A, there's different methods or different work frameworks that can help you to materialize it, like Scrum or like extreme programming. Then there's different methods, but I don't think they are that important. They started in the software world, but today I think when we talk about agility, we need to look at it much farther, much broader, from a holistic point of view of thinking how it relates human-centered design, agile methodologies, and and the new paradigm of integration of the workforce and motivation.
Yeah. Can you give an example how you work inside or with the team? Let's say there's a new team, they have a specific problem to solve. How you establish that in your current job, as an example, or how would you establish it? Like, how do you get Agile as part of the team that they take it over and run with it going forward?
So I usually sit and ask them, how are you doing things? Because people usually try to do the best they can, and there's intelligence in the way they have organized themselves. So of course, there's always some legacy of I learned to do it this way. But usually, people when they are engaged in an endeavor that invites them to bring their whole heart to put their whole heart to the table, which is the luxury case in which I am now. People is trying to do their best. So I'm basically trying to figure out how to help them to shorten the loops, the learning loops, and trying to make them realize that if you're only interacting with that specialist once a month, then if something goes wrong, you have 1 month to get the input and another month to check if your conversation and your request for change was implemented. So I try to invite people to do a heavy investment at the beginning, to invest in the relationships, to figure out, okay, with who do you need to interact more often? Who do you need to create? Who will make a difference if we have a closer interaction in the short in the short term, and then let's invest in those relationships. Let's pay at the beginning a heavy price of creating the relationship, creating the synaptic connections. So then later on, if you want to go back and default to a month-long cadence of communication, at least you know that there's a glue in which if something that you should learn happens, there's going to be an informal communication before that month.
Yeah. I love that because it's so simple. And I was just thinking about how I was networking when I was in a large corporation, and that if you do this well, and when you work long enough in the organization, you know what will be in the news tomorrow, in the internal news, before it's out there. And that's basically also nothing else in a different system. Yeah, and it goes back to the point that you said, how important it is. It's not the processes. Of course, they're important, but it's more the relationships between humans inside an organization that, let's say, oil the process and make them smoother and help you to develop things.
Yeah, because at the end, the large organizations and the paradigm of mechanism that we get in scientific management also prompts a behavior that this is what I'm responsible for. Period.
Yeah.
That's I do marketing. Don't ask me to take care of your technology, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask me to take care of your costs after you launch or whatever, right? But what I try to invite people to rethink is to look at it with the point of view of what I've been calling radical accountability, trying to invite the whole team to feel that they own, and that they first that they own, and then they are accountable. Of course, I don't want them to feel accountable for something that they don't feel ownership for, but I want them to feel that they own the whole thing. So usually also something that I do often is just to do a demo, to just but a demo with things on the table, a play date, right? And let's put all the different pieces on the table, and let's look at it, with a critical eye and with some critical thinking. And that usually works wonders. Very, very fast, people start to feel, oh, great. So I am part of this. I am part of this project, or I am part of this initiative, and it's a wholesome thing that we're delivering.
Yeah. So that's then, if I understand you right, that's automatically as well breaking the silos between the different organizational units, even depending on what company it is.
Yeah,
but definitely departments.
Yeah. Whenever possible. So sometimes it's been different ways, no. But one of them is trying to invest heavily or figure out whether there are some areas that it makes sense to get together quick and to get them to start interacting. The other one is making demos and helping them see and touch the different parts. The other part culturally is inviting them to be candid, but to be unkind at equal measures, candid and kind. So I want them to be super honest, but I don't want them to be performative about their feedback. So I don't want them to be performative about how smart I am in the meeting. So I come up on top in this 15 people room. So I call out also when things are performative, and try to not let it be, because that generates psychological safety is only as strong as the people that feel more unsafe in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be a defender of that part, or trying to defend and to nurture the psychological safety of the person that feels more endangered in the room.
Yeah. How important is having a coach supporting you doing that from your perspective?
Not important, actually. I think that having people in the team that believe in these things, it's actually the long-term solution. So my goal or my goal in the organization, or the way I've been approaching it, has been less about me and less about increasing the number of coaches available around the organization, and more trying to seed initiatives of let's do a book club, let's and people have passions, and people want to work on creating new and better solutions. So I don't know. I usually will say that it's not that important, but at the same time, sometimes it is.
No, I definitely see your point, because the tricky thing is, if you have never done it, you need someone who is basically guiding you the first time. And then let's say when you got infected by the virus, then you want to do it yourself. So it's basically, if you do the best job ever as a coach in your case, in your organization, you're not needed anymore. And that's a fascinating way of thinking it as well, because then the organization is growing into the direction.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit in a dilemma here with your question, no? Because on one hand, I'm aiming to what you're saying, no? I'm aiming to how can I see some of this? How can I see this? Initiatives that will leave or that will shape the culture of this organization, and in 100 years, there will still be something. There will still be some remnants of it, right? And in that way, you cannot think that you're going to be around in 100 years, right?
Yeah.
You have to think that okay, the only way, or at least how I'm thinking, is, as you're saying, how can I infect more people? As you have this goal of inspiring and empowering a million people, no, to innovate, no? So how can I infect more and inspire and empower more, so that it's not Nast's initiative, but it's your initiative. After an interaction, or after a couple of interactions, it's your goal. So I think a good coach will also drive you to figure out your own, to find your own burning coals. No?
Love that. I would like to transition now to the last part of the podcast, which is a couple of questions that are slightly out of context. Starting with the first question is, if you can be part or run a project that is impacting every human being on Earth, what project would you like to run, and why would you run it?
I will be part of, if I could choose and be successful on an instant, I will be part of regenerating the relationship of humans with information and political systems. Actually, it's part of a paradigm shift. I think that there's a lot of we are living in the tail end of a world in which media has been very, very much articulated, or has been more and more articulated to cater to interest groups, no, and to different interest groups, and I think that as I heard Yanis Varoufakis say at some point, media should be a non-governmental enemy intelligent agency, right? And that's a role that in a way we have lost, if it ever was. And I think that's an opportunity that we might have today with the new technologies to own the way we relate to information, and the way we create transparency, and we drive towards a more fair and just world.
Right one. Where will you be in a year from now? And you can say that from personal life and or business life, whatever you want.
In a year from now, I will probably be have my own innovation consultancy within the organization that I'm working now. That's something that I've been baking or cooking, and it can be a very exciting endeavor to do that professionally, or that relating to the organization I'm now in. But also in a year from now, I will probably be closer to a larger network in which or I will be integrated in a larger network in which we are acting on the desire that I told you before, of driving better innovation and in relationships with information and with citizenship.
How do you keep yourself informed, and how do you build your knowledge?
So I listen to a lot of books. I'm an audiobook fiend, so I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks on organizations, innovation, social justice, feminism, social. And a lot of fiction as well. So I read, I listen to a lot of fiction. I struggle a lot with written words. I'm a slow reader. So that's something that I felt very guilty until I discovered the magic of audiobooks. And then I also consume a lot of YouTube content on social issues, political issues, and that's also part of my hunger to intervene and to. I think that in the last 40 years, there's been a drive from the 70s, from the collectivism to individualism, no? And today we live in a much more individualist society in which we think that we need to do everything by ourselves and on our own. And that's something that I would like to get involved and subvert, no, and change into a more Ubuntu place, no, of I am because we are, and in a more collectivist mindset.
Love it. So where can people find you? How can people reach out to you?
So in LinkedIn, I have my best behaved way. So LinkedIn, Nast Marrero, LinkedIn-in-Nast Marrero. That's where I behave the most. If you want to give me at my grunge, to see me at my punk political enraged self, you can go to Twitter at Startup Jedi. At Startup Jedi, so that's where you can find me. And if you want to befriend me, I usually only befriend people that I've met in person, but then I shared some on Facebook. I also get dirty politically.
Yeah, we follow each other for a while, so I've seen some of that. Cool. Thank you very much for taking the time, Nast. It was a pleasure talking to you, and it's always super interesting to listen to your stories and your perspectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jens.